Today's topic is awakened intelligence. And let's look at what we might mean by that. You know, we hear these, excuse me, we hear these other types of intelligence. We hear reference to emotional intelligence and social intelligence and ecological intelligence. You might have mathematical intelligence, musical intelligence. There's lots of types of intelligence, and each of us fall on some kind of range in terms of our particular gifted intelligence. Some of us have real genius in just certain ways, and maybe not so much in other domains. Awakened intelligence, though, is an interesting type of intelligence in that you can actually foster it. You can actually, whereas you might not be able to increase your mathematical ability, you are able to increase your awakened intelligence. And this is something that has been, for me in my life, the most encouraging thing, because I've spent a lot of time in retreats, in the old days, sitting in retreats with teachers, and more recently, in the past 17 years, I've been leading retreats. So I've worked with literally thousands of people now in retreat. I should say I've relaxed with literally thousands of people in retreat. And what I've seen in retreat, where, as most of you who are attending today's webcast know, our retreats are not imposing any kind of practice. They're not actually any kind of, there's no technique involved. We're simply relaxing in beingness, in silence, in togetherness, but in a quiet togetherness that actually is profoundly intimate. And in that context of quiet, intimate relaxation, what we have noticed over and over and over is that people's awakened intelligence really brightens up, and that people start speaking from, I often say people start speaking as though they're speaking like mystical poets, but they're not trying to be poetic. They're just describing reality as they see it from an awakened vantage point. So it has been so encouraging for me, particularly about humanity, because it's quite easy to become discouraged about humanity when we see the cruelty and the ignorance and the rank stupidity that prevails and is splattered all over the news every night and day. We can become incredibly disheartened and think this species is on a suicidal mission, careening over the cliff. But having seen this sweetness that arises so easily, given half a chance, it has made me feel a great deal of hope about who we are and who we are in our essence, who we are in our fundamental essence, and that there is this intelligence operating if one can just access it. In almost everyone, I would say in the majority of people. There may be people who are just too far gone. They're sociopaths. Their conditioning is such that they're so tormented and so far, so deep in that torment that they can't get out of it. But that's rare. It's few. Most people, and I've seen this, of course, in retreat with all the various types of people who've arrived in retreat. Most people have this heart intelligence, this wisdom intelligence, just simmering away. And sometimes they're very distracted prior to coming to retreat. They have perhaps been in a swirl of busyness and madness and obsession and so on. But they get to the context of a retreat, and there it drops away, it empties out, it self-liberates. Now, we don't always have to have that happen only in retreat, of course. We can have it as a way of life. But why I'm mentioning the retreat is that that's been the context in which I've seen so much dramatic change. There can be a way that we choose to access that kind of intelligence in our daily lives. And that is easily accessed when we are intending to keep a certain type of balance going throughout the day. So that you don't wait until you're in a full-blown breakdown before you, you redirect your awareness. You start redirecting your awareness as soon as you start feeling agitation, obsessive thoughts, fear projections about the future, horrible, sad stories about the past. Now, it's not to say that you, of course, as I always say, it's not to say that you have to stop the arisings of these things. The arising you can't do much about. But you don't at all have to be interested. So the arising comes, and the attention just automatically redirects itself into relaxed beingness, into presence, into, where am I right now? Oh, I'm just sitting here in the fresh air. Or I might be sitting inside, as many of you are there in Europe in the night, sitting inside a lovely, safe place, just being and breathing and seeing and hearing. So you begin to constantly just redirect, and in this redirection there's this ease and relaxation, and it gives you access to an enormous amount of intuition and intelligence. And you begin to trust that to guide your life rather than some program, some list or cosmology, some belief system that you think is the guide for your life. You begin to trust your own good heart and your own deep intelligence to be responding as needed in your life. And this you can easily, like I said, foster. It's like a little flame, you just kind of keep it going. And it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. It's not to say you won't fall back sometimes. It's not to say you won't indulge some very powerful thing that might occur, some drama that is fresh. But you will be less inclined to entertain old dramas that are quite stale, or fantasy or nightmare dramas that haven't even happened. You will be less inclined to be subject to anything that isn't quite current. Now, of course, granted, sometimes something happens, something's up, there's an issue, there's a problem, there's an illness, there's something, and you have to, there's emotion attached with it. You have to have that rolling through, but it also can roll through the awakened intelligence. It also, even though it's painful or hurtful or whatever, worrying, it can be rolling through the awakened intelligence that also knows that this too will pass, and that you're going to be, it's trusting that, okay, it's hard, but I'm going to keep responding to each of these aspects of the problem from my freshness, right? I don't have to tell any story, any make-believe story about how this isn't really happening or any of that stuff like we spoke about last week. I can acknowledge that this issue is up, this problem is up, but I'm relying on my own intelligence, my heart intelligence, my clear, awakened intelligence to deal with this problem.